Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is December 4th, 2020. And in this video, we're going to have a look back at this past week's auctions over in Hong Kong. We're going to specifically focus in on the Christie sale and the Bonhams sale. Sotheby's had a sale as well. But there wasn't a lot in there that really showed us much about the market. And some of their stuff was more of a general line sale. It was good. They were good auctions, but I think Christie's and Bonhams had the more interesting auctions. Christie's in particular did a really great job, and they had, I think, the best of the lots, so to speak, just in my opinion. But anyway, we're going to take a look and we're going to browse through the results from this catalog, the Springfield Museum's collection, which did unbelievably well. There was just 12 lots, ended up grossing around $6 million, but well through their estimates. We'll talk about that. And then important Chinese ceramics and works of art at Christie's, and then the Bonhams catalog, fine Chinese ceramics and works of art. And what we saw was that the furniture, interest in Ming furniture, especially in fine later furniture, Qing Dynasty, Qianlong furniture, is really strong. The price results on the furniture were pretty much across the board at the high estimate or way above the high estimates. And I think that shows some real changes in the market as we move along. And we're going to start over here on the Christie side first, and we're going to take a look at the important Chinese ceramics and works of art. We're going to go through about probably a dozen or so of the lots to give you an idea how it went. The first thing was this really, really rare, fine, large Ding lotus bowl, Northern Sung to early Jin Dynasty. That's sort of how they date them these days. This bowl was pretty big. It was a foot in diameter, which is really large for these. If you've ever seen them, you know that most of these bowls are, in the 6 to 7 inch range at the most. This was a big one. It was beautifully done, beautiful lotus pods incised into the decoration, this lovely creamy glaze, and a real sense of the free-flowing drawing that they would do on these pieces. This was just an absolutely splendid example. We talked about it last week. I love the shape of it, and I love the three-dimensionality of the way the lotus petals are placed around it, and this very lovely copper rim on there that's just patinated to these beautiful tones. The whole package was just so appealing, and the piece had an estimate of 6 to 8 million Hong Kong, or roughly $800,000 to $1 million, and it just blew through that. 27 million Hong Kong. Which is a very big price, roughly $3.5 million US. So it went 3.5 times its high estimate, which is sort of a surprise these days because ceramics lately have been a little bit up and down all over the place. Some aren't as strong as they were previously, but when a big piece like this that's unusual comes on the market, large bowls like this just are extremely rare, and it did fantastically well, and it had a pretty good ownership history through the years. The last time it was on the market was back in the 1930s. Which causes a lot of excitement among collectors. We've seen it a million times. You get these old collections out there that haven't been on the market since, maybe 60 years or more. They just go crazy for them. And then onto this really lovely Yongchen period poppy cup, Yankai glazed. Just a very, very pretty example. Here it is. This was sort of a small bowl. This was only 4 or 5 inches in diameter, but beautifully enameled and a rare type. Had a 7 to 9 million Hong Kong estimate, and it brought 8.65 million Hong Kong, or a little over $1 million, about $1.2 million, call it $1 million 50,000, somewhere around there. And as I said, it was small. It was 3.916 inches in diameter, 9 centimeters roughly. So that's about 3.5 inch wide bowl. Pretty big price for a 3.5 wide inch bowl. But we've seen it before. I mean, we all remember the famous Chunhua chicken cup that sold for $35 million US. So it just goes to show you. And then there was this very nice Hongwu period charger or a foliate rim dish. This was a beautiful example, a very famous type, very nice, strong drawing on it, very well defined. You notice that the clusters are all very neatly placed, very defined against this nice white background, and lots of heaping and piling effect going on here. And then this very nice wave border inside of the barbed rim. Just this was a beautifully potted bowl and beautifully decorated. And it was estimated, as I said, 2 to 3 million Hong Kong, and it ended up selling right in the middle of the estimate, 2.5 million Hong Kong, or roughly you can call that about $350,000, and it was 18 inches in diameter. Gorgeous plate, though. Absolutely spectacular. And then over to this, the Kangxi 6-character mark. They call this a willow leaf vase, or sometimes they're referred to as amphoras. They're one of the, those official scholar forms that were done during the Kangxi period. But the shading of the pink on this was lovely, and I was a little surprised by they had sort of a low estimate, I thought. And then not to mention it comes in this great-looking stand. God, at any rate, beautiful piece, beautifully evenly glazed. It was estimated at 300,000 to 500,000 Hong Kong, which seemed low to me at the time. When I saw this a couple weeks ago, I said, boy, they usually bring a lot more than that. And it did. It brought 3.1 million Hong Kong, or roughly $400,000, which is up more in the range that they typically bring. And I think this was a rather splendid example, better than a lot of them. Very soft, very elegant, and a very nice tone. Like that a lot. And then over here to this, there's a Qianlong period Mei Ping vase, Marken period. Very nice cobalt decoration on it. Again, they use that heaping and piling effect to a wonderful extent. Lots of use of negative space, so the flowers in the pomegranates really have a sense of floating. And then this very, very stylized band of acanthus leaves or bok choy leaves lapping around the base. Just a fantastic example, and it went well over its estimate. It was estimated, the high estimate was 3.5 million Hong Kong, and it ended up selling for 5 million Hong Kong, which is about, call that about $650,000 US. And this was a nice pot, and it measured 13 inches in height. But again, this form, they can do awfully well. There's a strong demand for them. And then we're going to take a look at this. This was something I thought was really, really nice, and I thought the estimate was fairly reasonable. And apparently so did everybody else, because it was estimated at 600,000 to 800,000 Hong Kong, or roughly, is $70,000 to $100,000. And it ended up doing considerably better than that. It brought 1.8 million Hong Kong, which is about $250,000. But this was the fantastic vase we talked about. I'm pretty sure last time was the iron red decoration of the dragon against this beautiful Dalsai enamel background that's extremely curvilinear. All the vines scrolling and flowing around, and these beautifully done spiky leaf flowers and so forth. Just absolutely elegant looking vase. Beautifully done, and then this extremely fine sort of a lotus petal border on it. It's the same border we just saw on that. If you think back, it's same on that 12-inch dingware bowl from the Sung Dynasty. There's that pattern again. It never went away. It's just used in different places on these vases now. And as I said, it brought about 225,000. This was a big pot. It was 32 inches tall. Quite a presentation. Very impressive. Really, really a handsome thing. Beautiful. And then over here to this auction, this was Inspiring the Mind, Life of a Scholar Official. They had some great things in here, and there was a lot of interest in it. There was a lot of excitement, and things did really, really well. And we're going to start with this. This was that very fine 5 Dynasty gilt bronze censer that we talked about last time. It was estimated at 400,000 to 600,000 Hong Kong, and it went right up there, and it ended up bringing $500,000 or 500,000 Hong Kong dollars. So that's roughly 60 or 70,000 US. But it was a beautiful piece. It was a wonderful example. It had those early lotus petals where they thickened them up rather than being very thin as they were in the Ming Dynasty, and nicely gilded. This beautifully open-worked, reticulated sort of garlic ball here, around a ball separating the beast and the burner holder and so forth. Just a great example. Absolutely fabulous. And it did fine. It did just fine. And then over here, this is the Xuande Ming wax resist or wax lost wax technique cast bronze with the Buddhist symbols on it. We talked about this a bit last week, and we thought the estimate looked very reasonable on this. Also, is a rare type. Xuande Ming was, of course, one of the most prominent of all the late Ming Dynasty bronze casters. People collect his things. He was one of probably the most important bronze caster of the age, and he was known for this kind of work with these stippled grounds and these beautifully done relief worked areas with creatures and animals. This time it's Buddhist symbols mostly, which made it sort of unusual for him. And the estimate was 100 to 120,000 Hong Kong, which is, as you know, somewhere in the $10,000 to $15,000 range, and it went well above that to 175,000 Hong Kong, or that works out to about $22,000 or so, which is sort of the price range we'd mentioned before, that the good ones tend to bring 18 to 25,000. So it brought right in its sweet spot of the historic prices for these. Of course, the advantage was that they had a low estimate, so the low estimate encouraged a lot of interest and participation. And the psychology among bidders is that, yeah, okay, it's got a low estimate, I got a shot at it, and then they become committed to the piece. Buyers psychologically become committed to pieces with low estimates, and suddenly they're bidding right up to where they might not have bid otherwise had the estimates been higher. High estimates discourage interest and participation. Nobody minds paying a good price for something, but they always like the feeling that they have a shot at a bargain, and that's the psychology behind putting reasonable, very modest estimates on things, because high estimates can really kill a piece. And this was a case where it really worked out well for this. And then over to this did fantastically well. This excellent Ming Dynasty double gourd vase with lots of gilding, beautifully done, with the dragons at the top opposing over the pearl and so forth down. The body had a nice patina on it, and these beautifully done fu lines clutching. You can see them sort of clutching their claws like cats into the side of the vase, and you have these silk balls above them. And this was estimated at 150 to 180,000 Hong Kong, or around $15,000 to $20,000, 25,000, and it went way above that. It went 3 times its high estimate, basically. Ended up selling for 475,000 Hong Kong dollars, or about 75,000 US. A strong price, but this is a very lovely example. And this type, if you're looking at it, you'll realize they don't come up that often on the market, but there's always an interest in them. And then on to this, the table, the recessed leg Lingxi table. This was a very nice one. They had a couple of tables that did very well. We're getting into the furniture, of course, and the furniture is very strong. This table was estimated at 2.2 to 3.5 million Hong Kong dollars. So the high estimate's around 400,000. Ended up almost tripling that. Went for 9.2 million Hong Kong, or about a million. What's that work out to? About $1.1 million, $1.2 million, somewhere in there. But a great looking table, absolutely great. Thick planks, nice composition all the way around. The open worked end panels are beautifully done. Nice thick top, very attractive graining throughout it. A good piece, and as they say, and 9 million later. Beautiful table, and it was Xuande, of course. And then here to this one we did talk about in the previous video. Again, another really fine recessed leg table with everted flanges, the way they kick out on the ends, and had these roux heads inside of it. Ended up selling for almost 7 million Hong Kong, well above its high estimate again. Or about $900,000, but beautiful, strong structure here, very bold, very gutsy, and this was an early Ming table. Earlier than most. Most of them, the planking, as we said last time when we previewed this, is the woodwork on these, the panels, the planks got a bit thinner as the Ming Dynasty wore on, because the price of the wood had gone up so much. And there was also an interest in lightening up the look a little bit, but this was a good, strong, early Ming table. And it got a very nice price, 6.8 million Hong Kong, or about $800,000. But again, well above its high estimate, which is a positive sign for the market. And this was a table that did very, very well. We thought the estimate was very strong on it. This was a Qianlong period but it's Zetan, all carved, beautifully carved Zetan table we can revisit this for a second here. Just so much work went into this typical high Qing furniture design and furniture work, top quality carving all the way around, right down the legs. Beautifully done. And then this base panel, which is just this base panel could have been a whole tabletop or something unto itself, with this beautiful lotus flower blossom in the center, and then this profusion of very strong vines coming out and running around it everywhere. An absolutely stupendous piece. And then it terminates with these ball feet, or semi-ball feet actually. They're just sort of kicked out feet, but they put roux heads on them so they look like balls. Just a fantastic table, and as I said, it sold for at its high estimate of 20 million Hong Kong dollars, or about 2.5 million US, which is a significant price for Qing Dynasty furniture. This is good to see, because for a long time, Ming furniture was really the furniture that sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And now we're seeing 18th century, and I think we're going to see 19th century furniture of top quality start to get increasing amounts of attention. But this was a real test of the market. The provenance, this was quite good, though. If you remember back, it sold in Hong Kong back in 2014, but it came from the Hosokawa clan back then, but it had originally been handled back in the 30s by Yamanaka Company. And we all know the story about Yamanaka, which was one of the great Asian art dealers in the world, based out of Japan. They had stores in the United States, they had stores in Tokyo, and handled the best of the best during their time in business. Unfortunately, they were shut down shortly after Pearl Harbor under this. The story is they had no involvement, of course, in anything to do with the war, but they were Japanese-owned, and under a 1917 law, following the declaration of war after Pearl Harbor, they were mandated to be closed, and they began mailing out these fantastic, if you've seen the Yamanaka catalogs, those yellow catalogs today that are worth $600 or $800 or even $1,000, that was the liquidation sale of the American base of Yamanaka. And they sent out these catalogs with some of the greatest rarities in the world into people where they could get things on approval, because they had to liquidate the company. And a number of great pieces are still in American collections due to that sale today, and a lot of them have turned up in auction over the years. So, at any rate, it's an interesting side story. Yamanaka. And then back to this, the parquetry round corner cabinet from the Qing Dynasty, Qianlong period, done in the Ming style, but they added all of this fabulous bamboo parquetry work to the case. This is something you see often in European furniture, French and Italian, Flemish furniture, and so forth. And here it is, parquetry work done in China. It may have been influenced, of course, by the Jesuits going back and forth and sharing ideas on woodworking, because it's just a really unusual thing for them. But the end panels with the honeycomb pattern that you see on 18th century porcelain, and then these almost abstract looking blocks down the front, just way ahead of its time. That beautiful iron latch or hinge closure on the front, just an excellent thing. Estimated at 2.6 to 3.2 million Hong Kong, and it went well above the high estimate to 4 million Hong Kong, or $500,000 US. All right, and we remember we talked about it in the other video. We thought it would do that because this is a really rare type of chest, and they're hard to estimate because there are not a lot of them that have been on the market. So it's difficult to come up with what they call a comp to say, well, one just like it sold a few years ago, so this one is probably worth this or that. I don't remember one of these having been on the market in a while. I'm sure they could find a couple and try to ballpark it. So good on them for that, because the estimate in the end was pretty good. And then over to this, the really, really lovely pair of Huanhuali round corner tapered cabinets on stands, on their original Ming stands, which makes these quite unusual. And these were very handsome, very strong looking, beautiful matchbook paneling on the front, where they would cut the plank and then flip it over to this side, for example, and create sort of a mirroring effect. You see how these wood grains mirror one each other all the way around, and they do the same over here. Very effective use of wood. You see the same thing also on Western cabinets. They often do that. They do it with marble even when they do marble installations in buildings. and they call it matchbook marble. At any rate, here's the base. Had their nice original stands with the step shelf on the bottom, and these very nice little returns applied to here and here, just all over. A great looking piece of pair of cabinets, absolutely fantastic. And they were estimated at 16 to 20,000 Hong Kong, which is right up there, and they ended up selling for 18,000 Hong Kong, or about $2.2 million US, 2,150,000, somewhere around there. Absolutely fantastic. Really great, really great. And then over to this little Huanhuali incense table, late Ming, early Qing dynasty, but done sort of in the Sung style. A very rare small table, a really rare. This is an incense stand. This tabletop is very small, about 20 inches, but a beautiful, beautiful base with this nice high up stretcher, and the legs look good all the way down. You see these shaped feet, and then they still have the little blocks under them, which haven't worn off or been rotted out. Often these little blocks underneath its tootsies here are chipped out, and things have happened to them. This table is remarkably complete. Beautifully done, and as I said the other day, the estimate was 2.8 to 3.8 million Hong Kong, which is a pretty strong price. It ended up going way over that, $8,650,000 Hong Kong, or roughly 1,080,000 US, somewhere around there. Very strong price for a little table. What was the top width on this thing again? Round edges, 80 inches, 31 inches high, and what is it? 21 inches wide, and 14 inches deep. So this was sort of a small, this big by that big table, but rare type, and did awfully well. And then over here, this was the Christie's sale of the Imperial Glories from the Springfield Museum's collection. I'm not going to go through all of them. The whole sale, here it is. You can go and check yourself, but everything in here seemed to go fantastically well. But these are extremely rare jades and extremely rare pieces of cloisonne, and there's a big market for that, especially when they come out of museums, and these haven't been on the market for 100 years in the history of the museum. And you had things like this. We discussed it before, this Shaolu and deer figure, a beautiful piece of nephrite jade, absolutely stupendous quality, beautifully polished, this lovely satin sheen all over the piece, the facial expression of the Liu Han, and then the beautiful, beautiful deer, almost smiling. Look at the little cheek coming up there. I love that thing. God, he's cute. And just a great looking jade all the way around. Nothing wrong with that in any way. And it was estimated at 5 to 7 million Hong Kong, or roughly, how does that work out to? About 500,000, 620,000 to 700,000. Went way above it. Ended up going for about $1.2 million, $1.3 million. But a beautiful, beautiful jade, and it was a substantial size too. It was 10 inches tall. That's pretty good size for a piece of jade that big. That's that perfect. The stone is so clear. There's no iron in it. There's no nothing in it. It's just pure greenish white jade. Absolutely fantastic. And then on to this. These are one of those champion vases, they call them. The pair of vases, cylindrical vases, with the winged creature standing on the head of the mythical dragon at the bottom. And this was an absolutely stupendous piece of cloisonne. Absolutely great. And the gilding on it was in tip-top shape all the way down. This thing was collected and cared for very, very nicely for a long time. Just a beautiful example. Nice color. That the blue, the blue background on this is just like the sky. It's absolutely beautiful, and ended up selling for 5.5 million Hong Kong, or roughly 3 times its high estimate, or around. That comes out to about $700,000. Okay, against an estimate of 120,000. But absolutely great piece. And then onto this Yongchen Qianlong archaic form, Hu form, arrow vase. And it wasn't marked. It wasn't dated. This piece did not have a rain mark on it. They're estimating the age to be sort of mid to late Yongchen to early Qianlong period. But top quality again, beautifully done, lovely blue background again. all this great gilding with this very atypical mask in the center. Just an absolutely stupendous piece of cloisonne. And this was a nice size too. It was 25 inches in height. A good big one, 2 feet tall. Ended up selling for 8,650,000 Hong Kong, or about 1.1 million in change, or 1,070,000, something like that. But what an absolutely great thing. And it went, as you can see, the high estimate was 5 million Hong Kong. So 8 million is a pretty big jump over the high estimate. And then down to the jade roux scepter that we talked about. This was absolutely beautiful. It had $1.5 million to $2.5 million estimate, and it sold right on the top estimate, $2.5 million. But I'm not at all surprised. This was an absolutely spectacular piece of jade. Again, very few inclusions. There's one tiny, tiny little color inclusion toward the bottom here. A little slight irregularities in color, but other than that, it's a beautiful, pure piece of stone. And this thing was big. It was 17 inches long. So you have to always keep in mind, when you have a piece of jade that's of this size, the size of the block of jade it had to be cut out of so carefully. This was a real big investment to make this scepter at that time. Absolutely great, and the quality, as you can see by the chimera, was meticulous and perfectly proportioned all over. And 2.5 million Hong Kong, or roughly that comes out to about a little over $300,000 US, right at its high estimate. And then the last piece of cloisonne we're going to look at from the collection was this one, another one estimated at 1.2 to 1.8 million Hong Kong, and it ended up selling for 6.8 million. Ooh, what happened to that? Look at that. Let's see if we can get a better picture than that. Doesn't look like it's, there we go. There we go. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? And this is a really fine example. Also, again, you notice that the gilding, again, is absolutely spectacular. You can get a real sense of the collector's taste in this case, Mr. Smith, because there was a certain flavor that ran through his cloisonne pieces. There was a certain flavor of style and color that went through his jades. And here we have this really, really stupendously fine piece of cloisonne in this just elegant gold base stuck on there. And it just screams, I'm important. You know, look at the base they put under me. And it ended up selling for $6.8 million. Or roughly around $700,000 US, and this wasn't terribly big. This thing was only 4 inches tall, but Qianlong, mark and period, and top quality. Probably made at the Imperial Atelier at the Palace, but just absolutely stupendous. And then we're going to hop over here to Bonhams. This was the one disappointment in the sale, and I never found out exactly what the reserve or the estimate was on this. This was that great Yongchen period censer. Very, very rare type. Absolutely beautifully done in a collection for a long time. And I have a feeling that the estimate was just too high. I just have a feeling that whoever owned it, it was German collection. They got a little too excited. They got out over their skis, and they may have said to Bonhams, "Fine, you can have it, but this is the only estimate, the only reserve we're going to accept." And maybe it was a little too aggressive. And often with these high price things, they end up selling, even if they don't sell in the sale, they often sell through negotiated sale afterwards, because the family realizes they may have made a mistake, or somebody might have gotten a little too excited about the estimates, and somebody will come in and make a serious offer, and it'll get accepted, because this bronze is so recognizable and its history is so well known now. If they were to re-offer it in another sale, even in a couple of years, everyone is going to remember it as the one that didn't sell. And it's sort of a tainted thing. So they need somebody who's a collector who will come along and buy it post-sale and is planning on owning it for a while. And if they can get that combination together, they're in good shape. That bronze will find a new home. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's just human nature. They just got a little too excited, perhaps, about the value. All right, and then on to this other bronze. This was a really, really nice wine container, ritual wine container, beautifully done. And this who was estimated 80 to 100 and what was I wrote it down. I want it because they did quite well. It was estimated at 80 to 220,000 Hong Kong, which was roughly, $18 to $20,000. Ended up selling for $42,000. Really, really nice example. beautiful. And then over to this. This was the one that had that spectacular. I'm going to put the box up. There it is. The one that had the box. Another who came up, and this had a $500,000 to $800,000 estimate, and it did much better than that. It went well over that, and it ended up selling for $940,000 Hong Kong. 940,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is about 140,000 over its high estimate, and it jumped up to 121,000 US. But this was a big one, and this was a Warring States period bronze, and we talked about it the other day because I just loved all of the inlay work in it. And if you pull it in, you can really see it. Let Bonhams' page load here a little bit. There we go. You notice how? Come on, let's go. There we go. You can see all the gold inlay, the gold line inlay, and then the turquoise set into it, just beautifully cast, that nice mask down the side. Absolutely lovely bronze. Absolutely lovely. There's the rest of it right there. Just, God, what a beautiful thing. And it brought a price. It brought a price that it deserves, $120,000. Again, I thought the estimate was reasonable, and everybody was willing to go a little bit above it with not turquoise inlay, but it's malachite. Excuse me. And now over to this. This was one of the little surprises of the sale, and I meant to mention this in the preview because it just struck me as being so great. Absolutely fine. This Ming Dynasty Xuande. It's based on a very early archaic wine holder. These were ritualistically used to keep wine warm, but this is a Ming example, and the quality of the work on this was just absolutely stupendous. Absolutely stupendous gilt work throughout it, gold and silver, and these beautifully these seated figure beasts at the bottom holding it up, and all of this that's going on. Just an absolutely great example. It was in a collection in Australia. It was belonged to a famous collector in Australia. Most of his collections gone to a museum, but this was something I guess maybe the family held back for some reason, other than it's just absolutely great, so why not? At any rate, it was estimated at, this was estimated at 150 to 250,000 Hong Kong, and it ended up selling for 1.7 million Hong Kong, or about 7 times its high estimate. But completely understandable. It went for $226,000 US. Absolutely superb workmanship, absolutely beautiful. And I had it on the list in the other one because we had 2 inlaid silver and gold pieces, and I somehow missed this one, and I apologize because I wanted to share it with everybody. But at any rate, that's sort of a look back, see how it went. There were some pieces, other pieces that didn't sell, and there were some pieces, of course, as always, that did much better. But overall, the market looks pretty healthy given all that's going on in the world. And I think there's a lot of life in the old girl yet, as they say. All right. We'll be back also with the regular weekly video. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Come over to Bidamount.com and check out what we're doing on over there. And thanks so much for watching. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think of these. All right. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week. All right. Bye-bye.